All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. How's everybody doing so far? These are the diehards. It's Thursday afternoon, and you're here. Thank you so much. It's been a great week here at MMS. I hope you guys have really been able to take advantage and try out all the different things, whether it's been sessions, whether it's been the hands-on lab and checking out the server aquarium. One of the great things about MMS, of course, is not only the ability to try hands-on labs and do sessions and talk with folks like myself and the product teams, but it's also to network and interact and talk with fellows just like yourself that are basically, how are we delivering solutions together? And what areas have we been successful? And what are the lessons we've learned? And what are the paths we should travel down? What are the paths we shouldn't travel down? At the same time, we also understand that, look, we all have different environments. Some people are going to be using some of this, a little bit of some of that. Some of them are going to be focused on certain parts of System Center. Some people are very much focused on OpsMan versus VMM versus Orchestrator. And in fact, yes, you may have a heterogeneous environment where we're using a different hypervisor like VMware, for example. And so, we understand that. And this is a great example and a great opportunity to kind of sit down and talk with really, 4 different companies and really kind of understand how they do business. What does their infrastructure look like? What are some of the challenges they all have? Because guess what? We all have those challenges. The big secret is, there's CTOs and CIOs and directors of IT come to Microsoft all the time. I spend a lot of time talking with these folks in our executive briefing center, and they all tell me very similar stories. Networking is hard. Storage management is difficult. This area is really expensive. How do I do things, not only do more with less, but the big challenge is how do I do more with less faster? That's really the new challenge. So it's kind of, let's take a look and understand how each of us work and understand what have we learned, and let's share those with you today. So I'm really pleased to have here on the panel, we've got Brian Dady from T-Mobile, Brett from Children's Hospital of Colorado, Vaughn, a senior IT technical analyst from Cargill, Ted Hacker, an IT specialist from 3M. I'm Jeff Woolsey, and I've got Claire Henry also, thank goodness. She's going to help me here moderating for our discussion today. So first off, I'd like to, want to keep this interactive. So we know you're going to have questions, and we want to feel free to kind of voice those. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend a few minutes with each one of these folks. They're going to kind of tell us what's going on in their infrastructure. What does their infrastructure kind of look like? What are they using? How are they using automation, for example? What are the things that they've learned? And then we'll, open it up for discussion if you have questions, or we'll ask them some questions. And, want to keep this kind of low-key, but want to keep this interactive and want to make sure that, you're getting the most out of this session. So I'm going to start off with Brian at T-Mobile.
Thanks, Jeff. So I borrowed a couple slides.
I'll give you the clicker.
Sure thing. I've brought a couple slides to give a kind of a foundation to what our platform looks like and put some context to why we're evaluating System Center and utilizing it the way we are. As you can see from this slide, we've got a mixed environment of IBM AIX. We've got both physical and virtual Windows, and then we've got another mix of physical and virtual Linux, mostly the Oracle distribution. And then I've also pointed out a little bit of what our storage looks like, because you can't very well deploy compute resources without having some disk for those to work over, to store the data, et cetera. The one part that's missing from this, you may notice, is networking. That doesn't fall under my purview in the way our organization's laid out. But I just say, hey, I need this amount of connectivity, and make sure my chassis and frames can talk to the rest of our world. So that kind of puts a little bit of context to the size of our environment. Specifically within that, both for the Windows and Linux context, this is what our current VMware footprint looks like. One of my favorite numbers up there is down toward the bottom, 176% allocated, which I don't view that necessarily as so impressive about, hey, look what we've done with VMware, but it's another one of those classic cases of, hey, look what people ask for, and then look how much they actually use. So it's pretty common for app teams and project managers to come through and say, hey, I need 16 4x8 boxes. So we roll those out, and then you can see how much of the actual physical resource underneath those virtual allocations they're actually using. The quotes there about having a grandfathered licensing entitlement are really key, I think, to this conversation, where we don't have the current vCloud Enterprise entitlement, and so we're making some decisions based on what we own today, taking a hard look at what can we do with what we own, and trying to find the right bits and pieces to help us do more with less. Because I think to Jeff's point about everything needs to be faster, everything needs to be cheaper, In some cases, you know, the old adage is time is money. So for us in our environment, faster equals cheaper. So if I can have very clear building blocks, very easy lists of, hey, I can get this amount of VM in this amount of time, or if a PM thinks they need a custom configuration, well, that's an exception. You have to go through this level of approval, and then you can get out this thing that you think you really specifically need. And a lot of times that's enough of a deterrent to jump back in and work with what's more quickly and readily available. So for organizational, kind of where our priorities at, I won't read through these, but these are kind of some of the things that we're working to work towards. There's a perception that public cloud is either cheaper, faster, easier, but we're working very hard to prove that we can do private and maybe hybrid solutions, both for IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, equally cost-effectively, efficiently, et cetera. Jeff asked that I explain the environment as a service concept because I'm sure
please.
it is a...
What is that? So for those familiar with the NIST definition, that's the government definition of cloud. That's infrastructure as a service, software as a service, and platform as a service. So I saw EAS and thought, what is that exactly, please?
So that's a label that one of our VPs came up with, where a very common workload, one that receives a lot of attention and man hours to it currently, people hours, is refreshing, rebuilding dev and test environments. And so when I have an infrastructure as a service piece next to a platform as a service solution, such as a SQL or another kind of a database management workload, next to perhaps a subscribed public cloud SaaS thing, and I've got to figure out how to stitch all those together, come up with the T-Mobile specific configurations of that, they're kind of putting that bundle together in a wrapper called environment as a service. The reason that we're trying to do more with what we have with System Center is because we already had it. We've had configuration manager and operations manager in place for a while, but there's enough, as you're probably seeing, that's appealing about the newer releases of those, both with 12 and also with the SP1 upgrade to 12, that are pretty appealing. And so we're trying to get more out of that suite that we're entitled to. And I don't know if this looks familiar to anybody else, but you know, the thing that we're trying to showcase to management, one of my internal marketing initiatives, if you think of it that way, is there's a lot of complexity in the data center, and historically there are very specific tools to manage those point solutions, and there are very skilled people that know how to manage those point tools. But what we're trying to get to with better orchestration, better automation, integration, and consolidation of all the tools is to bring those things together so that it looks simpler, so that the service catalog items are easier. You know, there's not as many confusing or complex pieces to request and ask for, even though there's still the same level of diversity and variety and all the different capabilities that we need to deliver out of our data centers. And that's about it for my background. So thanks,
awesome.
Jeff.
So there's a little bit of background from T-Mobile. That's very interesting. And what I find this last slide especially interesting, the siloed management. That's something that seems to come up very often with different customers I talk to, and it's we've got a set of admins that look at this, we have a set of admins that look at storage, we've got some that look at block storage, some that look at file, AIX, power, all of these things are completely disassociated, and the ability to actually think about, hey, can we leverage all those things together? Can we provide a more integrated solution? And can we take advantage of those efficiencies so we can actually deliver more value to the business? I think that's a very powerful message there. Great. Thank you so much, Brian. So let's bring up Brett from Children's Hospital of Colorado. Here you go. Yeah, you can stay out there. Absolutely. You got to take the clicker, though.
Hey, everybody. I'm Brett Chevalier with Children's Hospital of Colorado. I was asked to come out here and share a success story about Windows Server patching that we initiated probably about a year and a half ago. My cell phone's been going crazy. It's just the initial release of our patching right now, and all the business owners are doing their own patching of dev environments. So we'll get into a run book here real quick. I just wanted to set up why we're doing this. Basically, I was brought on to Children's 3 years ago to facilitate patching through SCCM of all the server environment. We run about 1,200 servers. A lot of them touch the patients, kids, and that kind of thing. And so they're sensitive. And as an IT organization, for a while we were kind of pushing one maintenance window for patching, and we really weren't thinking about the workloads of nurses and other clinical staff behind that. Every patch cycle we go through on a Friday, and at the end of the patch cycle, we had a lot of complaints from the business and even myself that it was just too stressful. So we started thinking of other ways we can do it. And Orchestrator, coupled with Service Manager, brought kind of a realization of able to empower the service owner, application support people, even down to clinicians themselves, to initiate patching when they saw fit, not when we saw fit as an IT organization. So we'll get into a couple of runbooks on how we do that. We just recently redid them for Service Manager 2012 and ConfigMan 2012. These were running on 2007 initially. When we did that, the bosses asked if we could do them in stages of servers. So we grouped our servers from levels 1, 2, and 3. So if you have a back-end set of servers that need to be done first, and those brought up, and then other servers done, we extended the Service Manager database, the computer form, to have those in there. So this is our portal. Everybody's seen the Service Manager portal, but this is ours. The portal is designed where anybody can log into it in the organization. It doesn't matter if they're an IT person, a service owner, or a clinician. They can log into it, but they have to be listed as a business service owner within Service Manager to see their stuff that they can patch. So we have roughly 225 business services out there, and I can see 15 because that's only the ones I'm listed on. So that way we don't have a clinician patching Exchange or Active Directory on us, and likewise I don't have the Exchange administrator patching something that might be touching a kid on a table somewhere. So that's how we kind of keep that segregated. There's two runbooks, two main runbooks in this, and they get called other runbooks, tertiary runbooks, but this is the service patching runbook, and it initiates a couple different workflows here. It's getting one piece of data from Service Manager, and that's the runbook ID. Everything else, it goes back into Service Manager and gets the business service that we're going to initiate patching on, and then it gets a list of users that are associated with that, so it broadcasts emails out to other service owners that somebody initiated the patching on it and tells them who did it. And it also initiates an email to the engineering group so we know what's going on, who initiated the patching, and what business service it is, so we can get ready to see phone calls that a service is down, and then we can tell them who started it. It goes through the 3 different patch groups. Those are, like I said, other runbooks that get launched. It reads the log files to make sure it can keep going, so if anything failed on the previous runbook, any servers didn't come back up, it's going to stop where it's at. It's going to notify us, and we're going to take action to recover at that point. At the end of everything, it emails everybody that it's been completed. The runbook itself that patches each individual server, it'll run through and get which group it was, and then add them into SCCM for its own patching. We run deployment rules, automatic deployment rules in SCCM. Every quarter, we do a refresh of those, and we look for the new patches, and then it advertises those to a collection. And then all we're doing is making a collection rule for each server. That's it. It's pretty simple and straightforward. We do an update of the collection rule, refresh the machine policy, and then we're checking compliance against, basically, it's one of the activities inside of Orchestrator for ConfigMan to sit there and check its compliance over and over. And we have a cycle that it goes through and waits. Once it detects either a compliant state or a failure, we'll take action on that. And it comes back out of the runbook. If there's a failure, it logs it. Otherwise, it comes out, it deletes the collection membership for the server that was in there. We just do a quick get service status, make sure the servers are back up where we think they should be. If they're not, it'll write it that it's failed. It'll log it with in a log file. We're watching for those failures. Otherwise, it says it's good to go, and it stops the runbook. The next level of the runbook looks at where it's writing a service status to make sure it's good to go. If there's any failures in there, that's where it stops. So that's about it from us. I do a whole lot better with interactive question and answer sessions, so when we're done with the other two speakers, I'll be happy to explain anything you guys want.
Thank you so much, Brett. You made a comment in passing. I actually wanted to say something. You mentioned very quickly about a child on a table. What do you mean by that, so people really understand what that means?
I didn't want to scare anybody. I'm sorry about that if I did. Basically, we have servers that directly touch patient care. So let's say you bring a child in for a sleep study who happens to have seizures or something like that. We'll have systems that grab that telemetry data and store them and upload them so the docs can see it. Well, if IT decided, well, this was a good time to patch, and they blasted the server and rebooted it, we've lost that data. The kids come in, taken off medication, the parents have brought them in, sometimes hundreds of miles, and IT just screwed it up. So that's why we said those are the people better suited to initiate patching on servers than we are. We have sometimes no visibility into that, but the clinicians do. So that's what I meant.
No, that's a very key bit of insight, really is. And that really is about impacting, quite literally, people's lives. So thank you very much for that, Brett. Next, I'd like to invite Vaughn from Cargill. And again, you get the clicker.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Vaughn Nerdahl, senior IT technical analyst at Cargill. My primary area is Orchestrator. I had a session at 10:15. Who's all there? Okay, that's actually good, because I blatantly stole some slides. So some of you are going to see it.
Yeah,
so
but they're really cool
I need to know
slides.
how much I had to improv, so it'll be a little easier. So this is just a quick slide about who is Cargill. So we're basically a food company. Probably half the food we ate today at the lunchroom was somewhat Cargill in some way. We've been around forever. We're a big company.
I'd like to thank you for lunch, Vaughn, by the way.
Yeah, you won't see Cargill on the product, but we, like for example, Pepsi right there. High fructose corn syrup, that's ours. We got all kinds of back-end stuff like that. Yeah. Maybe that was a bad example. Lots of McDonald's examples too, but I'll leave that one out. Tons of locations are all over the globe. So we've been using Orchestrator for a couple years. We started looking at it just when Microsoft bought it and when it was in beta, and so we've had it in for a couple of years. About the last year, we've stood up the Orchestrator service, and we're in production in the data center, distributed developments, environments, etc. So we'll see that here. So this slide is to kind of tell you how we use it. We use it a lot with SCOM. So we've got our SCOM team has been trained on using Orchestrator, and they're using it a lot. So Orchestrator is pulling in alerts from SCOM, processing those, generating incidents, so the BMC remedy, so we're talking over to remedy to generate those incidents, reading incidents, and then doing the synchronization of if the alert is closed in SCOM, the remedy ticket's closed, and vice versa. And we actually use Orchestrator to monitor SCOM. Because you end up with, well, SCOM's a monitoring agent. Well, who monitors the monitoring agent? So our SCOM guys are using Orchestrator to watch and look at their SCOM environment, and if I don't remember the details of how they do it. I think they pull alerts, whatever. But they have a method of looking and saying, hey, our SCOM environment's not doing what it's supposed to do. Let's send a page. So that's kind of cool. So we're doing a lot of interesting things like that. I'll do one other example for Configuration Manager. In Configuration Manager, you have the secured collections, and you struggle with, well, how do I populate that with the correct devices so that I can do my delegation? So we have Orchestrator going and talking to our CMDB, doing queries on our servers, for example, finding all the servers that are supported by the correct support team, and then it populates that secured collection. So now the delegation, it's all automatic, and we do it that way. So. Basically, how we do Orchestrator is we have a central team, that's 2 of us, and then we have a distributed development environment, and we've been very successful in having that hybrid model of a central team has the expertise, able to work directly with Microsoft. If we have to open incidents, which is very rare, it's been very stable, and have a place where people that are doing development can come to. We do training for them and be that expert for them and manage the environment. But then letting other teams do their own runbook development so they can set their own priorities and automate to their heart's content, and that's gone well. Okay, so this is our production Orchestrator environment. The key thing here is multiple servers. They're running on virtual machines. We got off-box SQL. We do mirroring, but doing the clustered SQL would be a lot better, and we're going to look to do that once our DBAs support that with 2012, so that's the plan. We have a network load balancer in front, and then we have the 2 web services. So web services on both boxes, that's the key piece on this that you don't get typically natively, where people will install the one box where you get all the components, and then you have another, your secondary server, which is typically just a runbook server. And that works great for just running jobs, but this environment lets us have the web services in a high availability mode so that the web console is always available. And we have external systems that start runbooks through the web service, so it's very important that our web services are always available. So, for example, our what are called critical or MIs, major incidents, like emails down, huge stuff, Active Directory's down. Those things all run through Orchestrator. So those web services have to be available because they're triggered through our paging system. So this environment has worked out really well for us. The point of this slide here is to talk about the value of that Orchestrator brought us. So what we did was we tag our runbooks. When we promote them from dev into QA and production, we have an interview process, and we ask the developer, how much time does this save? Every time this runbook executes. Like, we have a runbook that was created for the service desk, where they have a process where they'll accept a spreadsheet that other teams will create, and someone from the service desk was literally opening the spreadsheet, going into Remedy, and typing for hours every single week. I think they spend like 4 hours a week, copy, paste in all the different fields, horrible. So now what they have is on a SharePoint site, people can just upload a spreadsheet. They have a spreadsheet template, fill out 1,000 rows in there if you want, and Orchestrator will pick that up automatically, open up the spreadsheet, create the 1,000 incidents, close it out, move it into a folder to show that it was completed, and actually it edits the spreadsheet as it's processing each one, putting the incident number and then whether there were any issues. So those types of things we can show for headcount. This one here, if you see, it shows from February to the month of February. During that month, we have 15 headcount. If you were going to do what Orchestrator did, you'd need 15 people to sit and do that work. And that's...
Go back for a sec. What was the question?
Yeah, this is kind of funny because you can blame Microsoft for those icons. We internally to Cargill, we have Dilbert icons, so it's a lot cooler slide, and we actually license for it. We have an internal like clip art page where we could go to. So we use the Dilbert one. It looks a lot better because it's like saving IT geeks, right? 15 IT people we saved.
Nice.
But when I got it in, the Microsoft lawyers wouldn't let me use the Dilbert.
I'm sure our lawyers said.
I don't even know what it is. It's like a guy.
Little guy
with
running,
a little
I think.
hat. I don't know. So that's it.
Very cool.
All right. Ted.
Yeah, I have to say, when he showed me this first time I saw this, I was like, wow, that is amazing. You're actually cataloging the amount of hours you're saving doing repetitive tasks, and look, let's put those in Orchestrator and let's let it do the work for us. And those man hours, think about what they're doing now. It's not just keeping the lights on now. These guys are take these really tedious tasks. Let's let IT go and do work on the more interesting problems. So that's really a great one. All right, and now Ted from 3M.
Thank you. Let's see.
This one. That one.
So, I guess I want everybody to know. I guess I found out about this. I was asked this week to do the presentation.
And we appreciate you showing up, Ted.
And so, to get things ready, I have a quick overview of 3M, and then I'm going to go into just a verbal overview of our SCOM and touching on the Orchestrator environment too. So, but hopefully everyone is aware of 3M. But just in case, I pulled a few slides off. The vision for 3M is 3M technology advancing every company, every home, enhancing every home, and then improving every life. Covers a lot of the different products we make, and it's pretty simple. For the most part, I included this slide just to give you a size understanding of 3M. We have 88,000 employees in 70 countries. Technology platforms is a 3M phrase about the underlying technologies we use for making different products. And then market-leading businesses is is the major partitions in 3M for producing products. And we have a big R&D process of building new products. It's all about new products. This is a map just to give you a feeling for how big or how we're spread around. And sales, some of the basic numbers there. And these are the five market-leading business groups. The consumer, and I think maybe you're familiar with some of the products out of consumer, like Post-it notes and Scotch tape and stuff like that. And there's, in total, 3M has hundreds of thousands of SKUs. We make a lot of little products and a lot of big stuff, and even software. Electronics and energy, healthcare, industrial, and safety and graphics. And this is kind of a fun one, but there's a lot of collaboration within the company, and this presentation really comments about how 3M partners with customers.
And that was the last one we had, so why don't you tell us about...
No, there was... All right.
Oh.
Then I'll just... Is that one you want to go?
Yeah, why don't you go and tell us about your ops man?
Sure. Yeah, the SCOM environment really is designed to improve our efficiency and availability. We have about 10,000 servers, about 1,000 of those are Linux. And in the environment, we use SCOM to monitor all of the servers, Linux and Windows. And the servers are located all over the world, as I pointed out there. The SCOM environment we use now is the System Center, or SCOM 2007 R2, and we have everything in that one management group. And then within that management group, there's 10 management servers, and we have one cluster for running the databases. And as we've been using that, we're currently using that, and we're developing implementing a project to upgrade to SCOM 2012, BSP1, of course. And in order to kind of scale better for our needs, what we're going to do is have multiple management groups, and then we'll be able to have more opportunity for growth in different areas of numbers of servers, as well as maybe some of the application performance monitoring, and other things that tend to take a lot of resources out of SCOM. I also wanted to mention we do use Orchestrator. And SCCM. SCCM for server patching, and then Orchestrator for automating server builds. We have a website where people pick a configuration, and it goes through approvals and then gets built for VMs. And then we are going to use it for SCOM 2012 to forward alerts out of SCOM. The way we implement kind of the use case of our SCOM implementation is people who need to fix problems or react to incidents, we need to forward an alert to the ticketing system. We currently use Remedy. We're going to be switching to another product. And the idea is to get the information into that system so that they can work on the problem and fix it. So what we do is have a connector that forwards alerts up to the Remedy system. And when they resolve it, it closes the alert on SCOM. We generate about, it's over 5,000 alerts a month that tickets relate to. Somebody has to check and see if the service is up, or resolve disk space, or all sorts of things, and certainly availability. And the way we implemented management packs, if everybody remembers, or when with SCOM 2007, a lot of the management packs were very busy or chatty, generated a lot of alerts. So what we did is, instead of forwarding every single one of those, it would be just tens of thousands of things. We went through and worked with the clients to figure out what suite of settings would be good, what alerts they'd like that they can fix, and then identified those as ones that we were going to forward through. And we do that. We have kind of a standard management pack for called base monitoring, and then they can pick different size thresholds for, well, there's 4 thresholds for disk space or CPU monitors or memory or whatever. And if the base monitoring isn't meeting the needs, then we'll develop a management pack that monitors using the regular capabilities. But I think that's my overview.
Okay. No, that's great, Ted. Thank you. You can see here you've got a variety of different uses, a variety of different use cases. There's folks that are running global businesses, 3M huge, T-Mobile huge. You've got something much more personal there with Children's Hospital Colorado, where you're talking about individual patients, individual kids, impacting lives. There's a lot of things here where automation orchestration, it can be about efficiency, it can be about agility, it can be about taking those things that used to be those manual steps and automating them. One thing we didn't really kind of touch on, and I want to kind of point out, and I think Children's Hospital is a perfect example of this, is actually getting rid of human error as part of the equation. You really want to be able to say, let me kick off a job, and you know that it's going to be repeatable 100% of the time, and it's just going to simply work. And when you are talking about people's lives, you want to remove human error as much as possible. In fact, that's something we're seeing more and more, and it's something that we think about when we think about cloud. It's about repeatable, and it's about automatable. In fact, Brad made a comment earlier this week in the keynote, which really kind of stuck with me, which was he was talking about the networking and what we're doing with Azure. And in fact, on a daily basis, we're making over 50,000 network changes a day in Azure. Think about that for a second. There's no humans involved in that. That has to be automation. Even at that level of scale, one wrong change, one fat finger change, a router or a switch could make all the difference in the world. Well, this is just at a different scale. But again, removing human error as an issue here, and using orchestration and automation and taking advantage of PowerShell. I don't think we even said PowerShell, but one of the things to point out is just how PowerShell is being leveraged through Orchestrator to put all of these pieces together and deliver these solutions and be malleable to whatever your business needs need. So Claire.
Yeah, thank you to our speakers. I think they were curious a little bit about you. So I think, thanks for being here. So I just want to see a show of hands on a couple of things. How many of you are actually starting to implement, System Center 2012 SP1 and Windows Server, specifically with some of the automation? So that's PowerShell and Orchestrator. How many of you are starting to take this route? Okay, good. Great. So I think there's some good sharing in the room and getting some good questions. How many of you are what Jeff always cares deeply about, starting to move to Hyper-V System Center 2012? Excellent. How many of you, keep your hands up if you're moving off of VMware? Better, excellent. And then...
I love you guys.
I just had to make Jeff happy today, He's been working on it. And then I think the other question is, and I think there's some great expertise up here too, is, as Brad also talked about in the keynote, is we're really thinking about this platform, not just because it's a platform, but because we can run your applications and workloads best. So how many of you are starting to really see the need and starting to do things around SharePoint and Exchange and SQL Server as running on Hyper-V, automating the processes around them? Okay, I know there's some expertise here too, so those are other good areas of questions, because that's what we want to generate, is some of those best practices and ideas around that. So we're doing a lot of great work on that as well. So I think we want to open it up to questions from...
Yeah, first of all, does anyone have any questions? You got a little bit of the background from each one of these folks. Any questions so far? Don't be shy.
Go ahead, and we can repeat the questions. Just shout them out or take the mic.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what we have is that center of expertise. So there's two of us in that. So our job is to be experts in Orchestrator, and so we have two roles. Well, two roles that I'm going to identify. So one is if we have a business unit or a department that wants to automate something, they have a choice. They'll come to us and say, I'd like to automate whatever. And we'll present them with the option of, do you have resources that you'd like to do this yourself? Do you have someone that you could dedicate to this to be your orchestrator guy or gal? So if that's the case, then we'll talk about what development environment we can put them in, spin them up a new one, whatever, and go through training, and then they're off on their merry way and they're developing. And if they say, no, you know what, this is just one, or I don't have resources, or whatever the scenario is, then we can do that ourselves. So we'll do runbook development, or the flip side of we are the gatekeepers. Either way, we're the gatekeepers into production. So the Orchestrator production, both QA and the production environments run with high privileged process accounts. So it's kind of like, it's not domain admin, but you treat it like that, because we don't grant it rights to the world day one, but every project that comes in that says, I want to automate adding a user to Active Directory or whatever, and whatever you're automating, you think about what you need rights to, SharePoint, SQL, file server, whatever those things are, then we have to give the process account access rights to that. So suddenly it becomes something you really need to manage, and you really have to have good controls for these runbooks that come in. So when the people are doing in their development environments, they can do whatever they want, right? And then they go through a promotion process to get it into QA. We'll do an interview with them. We'll do an evaluation or a review of their runbook. And that, if it's a 5-activity runbook, that's just going to be us looking at it and rubber stamping it into QA. If it's this large patch management type thing that we saw from Children's, that's going to be something where we're going to sit down with them and schedule a meeting, and they're going to walk us through step by step what they're doing. We're going to look at the links and make sure that it meets our best practices, and we have a very clearly defined best practice document of how to do things. And then we will promote that into QA. It'll sit in there for 2 to 5 days. I mean, it kind of depends on whoever the author is, and then we move it into production. So. Does that answer it? Yes. Am I supposed to repeat the question? Okay, so why are we still? It shows that we're moving off of Altiris, yet we're still using Altiris. That's the nature of project management, right? It never ends. So the scenario is Altiris, we're a huge Altiris customer. We use almost a full suite, inventory, patch management. We've used their backup product, all kinds of stuff. So that gets into your organization. Our software license management is tied into that. I mean, it's a very big deal. So moving away from that to System Center is a very, very large project. But what happened was we made the decision to go to System Center. So Microsoft says, here you go, we got the EA, and here's all the tools, right? So as part of that suite, we said, okay, we need Operations Manager, which we had been using, so that was easy. But we got Config Manager, that's going to be a lot of work. But then, patch management, et cetera. But then we got this orchestrator thing. And we'd actually been wanting to do runbook automation, looking at the Symantec product at the same time, and this came in. Like, this is great. Let's take this and run with it. And it was easy because it's so modular. You can take it, you can stand up Orchestrator even if you're not using anything else. And that's what we did. We stood up Orchestrator right away, figured out the best practices, standards. We talked with other companies, got it going. So Orchestrator was quick. We got it going. The rest of the project is trying to catch up. So we've got SCCM in place, infrastructure's done, agents are fully deployed, we're doing all of our patching through there. But the inventory management tied in with software license management is still to be done, and the packaging, we got to migrate we have 4,000 packages, we're going to migrate 2,000 of them from Altiris into SCCM. that's a lot of work. So we're getting there. So hopefully next
It's a process.
few months.
It's a process. One of the things he said, though, just as a reminder, how many of you, if you were given the grant of your lifetime, which means you owned one of the System Center components with software assurance, you were given the entire product about a year ago. And I think what we're seeing with customers is Orchestrator is a great place to start getting more value out of the rest of the suite. Because a lot of you owned Ops Manager, you owned Config Manager. Now you were given this entire, product. I'm the marketing person, so I have to say product, with all of the different components. And what we're seeing is just the incredible value that Orchestrator brings right to it. And also I'm going to do a plug for those of you who have it and need a software asset management tool. Provence does a great job. I was with them yesterday, and they're seeing more and more of you say, wow, I have this, I can now do great asset management on top of this with Provence, and they're here as well.
Well, one thing I want to add to that is, there's actually a huge benefit that you probably don't see. It's unseen to you right now, which was moving from the a la carte method to it's all System Center. For us in the past, you used to be able to buy Config Manager separately, Operations Manager separately, but it means from an engineering standpoint and from a development standpoint, it means we have to engineer those products to work on their own. So for example, VMM is virtual machine management, and if it wants to use Operations Manager, they couldn't take the hard dependency that Operations Manager would always be there. Same through Data Protection Manager. What if I want to do backups from VMM? Wouldn't it be great if there's some integration, but I don't know if DPM is there? Well, now that it's all available as part of It's Just System Center, now from an engineering standpoint, it really removes a whole bunch of shackles from us. It allows us to think, okay, now we can really focus on, those really cool metrics that are coming out of Operations Manager, both for the host machines, for the applications themselves. Boy, wouldn't it great? And we can now take the dependency knowing, hey, it's there, and we can surface that into other applications. So you're going to see us see tighter integration, and you're going to see better integration that you basically are going to be able to take advantage of, because now we can take those engineering dependencies.
Yeah, and it also just think about things like models and workflows. We're going to, more and more standardization, so PowerShell just automatically works with Orchestrator.
And I have to say,
that's a Windows Server and System Center comment together, which is really important.
And I have to say, I love this slide, because this is one of the biggest benefits of Orchestrator, which is, look, it doesn't just plug into System Center. It doesn't just plug into Windows Server. Yes, it plugs into OpsMan Config Manager, but yeah, Altiris, Active Directory, Oracle, SharePoint, VMware, Tivoli, Director, etc. That's one of the reasons why this is an extremely valuable asset. And if you haven't taken a look at Orchestrator, really recommend that you do it, because it gives you that ability to really automate everything in your infrastructure. It can be that automation engine for your data center. Was there any other questions? Yes.
Great question for Brett.
Actually, that's totally SCOM independent. The only thing we do with OpsMan in that environment is put the server into maintenance mode and take it back out when it's done. To actually check that the server's back up, it's a task, an activity inside of one of the integration packs that's built into Orchestrator. It's going out, and you just tell it what service you want to look at. We don't even care if the service is actually up or running. It'll give you the results if the service is up or running. We care that it's able to complete the query to the server correctly. And then we key off that if it doesn't or not. So that's totally SCOM independent. It has nothing to do with it.
By the way, there's a gentleman at Microsoft. His name is Charles Joy. He's been an employee. He came from Opalis. Those of you remember, we originally acquired it. And he has put a lot of these sample runbooks in CodePlex. So, and so you can get a sample patch management runbook and so forth. And that's really good.
Another comment on that is, there is a little bit of opportunity for overlap within Orchestrator and SCOM. You can, to some degree, use Orchestrator to do monitoring, and then you can have direct connections to ticketing systems and that kind of thing. And however, pardon me? Or email out for sure, yeah. And you know, it's, I guess, a decision of whether you want to have just that kind of basic monitoring, or with SCOM you have a lot more, you know, data collection and performance charts and reports of all those different things. Granted, SCOM is a lot heavier, you know, it depends on how big the environment is, but there is an overlap there, so.
So the question was, how did we get the numbers that we have for oversubscription and kind of the stats? We've got a suite of tools, you know, kind of like the other slide showed. We've got point solutions management tools for every piece of platform that's in there. That one, I believe, came out of a report that was generated from vCenter. You know, and reporting is just one of those other aspects where we're trying to simplify and consolidate tooling. We've got a lot of emphasis right now on bringing our showback numbers together. What does it actually cost us to provision X VM? I kind of raised my hand half the way when the question was raised about anybody considering Hyper-V. For the place that I sit, the role that I play in our organization, I don't have an agenda of my own to go pick out a different hypervisor. But when I have my internal customers come to me and say, hey, if you could offer me a competitive hypervisor that costs the organization less, that's more money that I can invest in actual development and being competitive. And I don't know if any of you are following T-Mobile in the public news, but we're very much about uncarrier and kind of being scrappy and racing back from the fourth position in the U.S. carrier market. So anytime I can prove to my management that I can deliver comparable business capability for less money and do it faster, and faster is the new cheaper and all that, those are things that we're paying a lot of attention to. So I made a joke to my team a week or two ago. No, it's probably longer than that. Anyway, I made a joke based on I'm forgetting his first name, but the guy's last name is Deming. He's got all these quotes all over Wikipedia and everywhere on the internet. And I basically said to him, in God we trust, all others bring data. And so we have to be the first team to do that. We have to generate the data about what are our platforms, what are all the building blocks that we have to put on them, how many different kinds of management agents and building blocks do we have to put in. And for our platform definitions, the legacy of operating environments at T-Mobile is, well, I've got this operating system from this vendor, and I put it on that hardware from that other vendor, and then I put on these other clustering solutions and storage management solutions and all these different pieces to it. And we're very much trying to simplify, just like that other slide showed. We're trying to make it much more concrete, consolidated to say, when you need an operating environment, here's this thing that you get. Here's an instance where you can run your Oracle workload in, or this is a place where you can develop a new app based on .NET capabilities, or whatever the case might be. So we're both in the data that we provide about the platforms that we have, the platforms themselves, consolidating those, trying to simplify the amount of tools that we need to use to manage those. And so kind of what Vaughn and the rest of the guys up here have been talking about related to Orchestrator, with all the flexibility it has, plug it into all the other tools that are out there, try to get the data into some common data warehouses or data marts of some flavor, get it all in one place, and then you can really start generating more compelling reports and demonstrating, oh, well, I've got 3 different tools that all do the same thing. I'm going to pick this one that's the best, best bang for the buck, and I'm going to let the others go, and then I can reinvest that in other things that are actually advantageous for the rest of the organization.
I think there was a question way back there on the back the side of the room we've kind of ignored. So.
How big are each of your system center teams, or your teams that support?
Just want to go down the path. Maybe, as you say how big your team is, maybe talk about the components you're supporting, because that's actually probably an interesting variable. So if you're doing ops manager, VMM, what are the components and how big is your team?
Yeah, in our case, this SCOM and Orchestrator teams are kind of combined somewhat. We all kind of do development and building for others, but so there's 5 of us.
And how many servers does that go along with?
10,000. But like I said earlier, we do use System Center Config Manager. One of the guys works primarily with that. However, there's the infrastructure for all of the Config Manager environment is handled by our desktop team. because there's tens of thousands of workstations, and they have all the servers set up, infrastructure for that. So, and their teams are probably another 4 or 5 people.
So for OpsMan, that's 5 admins for 10,000 servers.
OpsMan and Orchestrator.
For OpsMan, ConfigMan, and
Oh, okay.
and for Orchestrator.
So 1 admin for every 2,000. That's not too bad.
Really good.
Not too shabby.
Yeah, I can echo that sentiment from Ted that the way our organization is laid out, the roles that are part of our infrastructure group are very much focused on keeping the management servers themselves healthy and functioning, and then the rest of the workload, I guess a little bit like what Vaughn showed, where there's kind of a center of excellence around making sure that the system center back-end servers are doing their job, and then the rest of the work is distributed out amongst desktop and end-user support kind of roles, application management and patching functions, et cetera. I have 1 Windows admin on my team. I've got another peer team that I'm heavily borrowing a System Center SME for. He's been primarily focusing on the architecture of the 2012 components as we roll them out. And then basically those systems get stood up and we say, hey, come use this as you need to. And that's part of the other appeal to it is, we can start small with the money and the infrastructure that we can convince our bosses to let us use, and then scale it up as the demand increases. So right now I've got basically 1 Windows admin on my team. I'm borrowing somebody else part-time, and then the actual care and feeding of the affected, supported end systems are distributed out. The most, I guess, in terms of putting it in context with the product, we are primarily focused on rolling out Config Manager 2012 with SP1 because that's drastically simplifying and reducing the amount of time needed by those other teams to execute patches and go through making sure that things are compliant and generate the reports and make sure that our security and compliance folks are appeased. And then there's a lot of work going on with orchestration to automate that and kind of similar to what Brett's group has been working on, put the patch control in that self-service model where folks can come in and execute those when it's best for them. And then that takes me out of the change management business to a degree because they get to figure out when's the right maintenance window for those applications, and they get to make sure that they're notifying the right folks, and I just have to make sure that all of the System Center servers are up and doing their job.
I can help. Basically, we kind of split the workload for System Center. We have a gentleman in the room that works with me. He takes care of VMM and DPM, the infrastructure and management of those services. I take care of OpsMan, ConfigMan, Orchestrator, and ServiceMan. I'll put in Service Manager in context. We do not use it for ticketing. We have a different solution for that. And that side of the house throws rocks at me, basically, when we talk about Service Manager. But we do use it for the CMDB. And the more we use it, the more they're kind of looking at what we're doing with it. We got that idea actually at MMS last year. I believe
I had dinner with you.
yeah, well there was that. And then we also, for ConfigMan, I do monitor or manage ConfigMan for the server side. I manage the infrastructure of it, but we also have a desktop services team, and there's 1 ConfigMan admin on that. So basically there's 3 of us for the entire System Center stack, and we monitor and manage roughly 1,000 to 1,200 servers, and I want to say roughly 7,000 desktops.
All right, just quickly, I guess, so we've got about 6,000 servers and about 65,000 clients. Orchestrator is 2 people, the central team. SCCM environment is 3 people, but that's like the other big companies have said, where you just keep providing the SCCM environment for other people to use, so they don't deploy software patches, wherever. It's there and delegated out. So that's 3 people there. SCOM team, it's a different group. I'm pretty sure they've got 5 people in that environment. So.
Where would you recommend I start? Which product
That's a great question. No, it's a great question.
You want to start?
Sure. Where would I start? Well, repeating the question exactly. So the question was, what if we had a competitive or other products established in our company, and we wanted to switch to System Center? How would we approach that, and maybe sequentially or whatever? Obviously it gets down to support from the top, but technically and sort of organizationally, probably what we ended up doing is we started with Config Manager, and then we implemented SCOM, and then now we're into Orchestrator. But I think Orchestrator, if you have the licenses, and maybe you do, and all right, well then, I think there's a lot of buzz about Orchestrator, so I think Orchestrator kind of has an attractive sense to it, so that's a good way to, automate things that are, business processes or things that are taking a lot of time to do.
So I'm in a spot where I'm trying to prove to the upper management that Ted mentioned that there's something in-house. One of the other teams that I work with made a joke when we had an internal kind of vendor fair a number of weeks ago, and he said to somebody, "We're tool heavy and process light. So if you've got something in your environment, and you're like, well, I've got 4 of these that all do the same thing, I'm probably in the same boat." And so what I'm focusing on is, like I was saying a bit ago, providing the data up the food chain to say, it costs us this to provide this environment, or we have these 3 things that all do the same thing, so let's quit paying for them, Altiris being one of them. Probably not in the scale that some of the others have talked about, but the main thing that we're focused on with the Config Manager upgrade is providing a new bare metal build environment. So there's the one aspect of Config Manager that touches the clients, and it's going to keep doing what it's always done, and even do a better job of making sure the right applications get to the right users, and helping some of those desktop environment focused people get closer to mobility, the portable work style, and some of those things, making sure the patches get to the right systems when the people that manage those systems hands-on approve it, not when I say the patches need to go. And then in addition to that kind of fresh look at what we can do with System Center, we're going to replace the Altiris RDP build and Pixie element, and we've already gotten to a point where I have a task sequence that'll build out new Windows servers. So for the few times when project managers or application teams come through and they say, no, I have to have my own physical server, we can do that. And we've also, not that this is necessarily supported, but we've gotten it to work where we can get that WDS Pixie instance to say, what are you here to build today? Is it a Windows box or is it a Linux box? And then we can have the various integrations and processes go that way. So that's an advantage where we now have a supported Pixie and bare metal boot environment where the Altiris systems that we have in place are past maintenance. And I think to Ted's point, it's really about picking, maybe because Orchestrator is so simple to stand up and start playing with and proving out some value. The example that I gave in a session that I was invited to the other day was a very simple attach to a VM, shut it down, change it from 1 vCPU to 4, start it back up again. And if you can start tracking the kinds of time and effort that takes, like Vaughn has been able to do, that starts to become data. You can provide reports up to others to say, look at how much value this is offering. This is clearly more valuable than whatever the software company is asking to be compensated for the licenses. So that's the mentality that I'm going at it, is very much focused on what could do with what we have. As soon as we have a checklist that says, yes, I have a tool that will do that, and I don't need to buy more, and I can get that message out to more and more people, then we don't need to have people evaluating new tools, because I can say, look, this is a capability that we can provide you with what we have. So that's the mentality behind how we're tackling it.
I probably have an unpopular answer, I guess, for you. It depends, and that it depends on what you're trying to do and what your end game really is. If you're looking to roll up data from multiple systems, such as OpsMan data, ConfigMan, and that kind of thing, then I would say Service Manager is your first install. These guys are right. Orchestrator is the first home run, definitely, and the biggest, probably quickest value add you'll see. But if you're trying to manage data for the environment and show it to the business, then I would say Service Manager, even if it's only for the CMDB, to get that in place first, because it centralizes the data from everything else in System Center. And you can also initiate runbooks from Service Manager's self-service portal for the users. So it's probably, in my opinion, one of the first installs. It's not what we did, but because we had a monitoring need initially and a configuration management need initially. But it was definitely on the roadmap to get it in there as quickly as possible because we could roll up the data.
Yeah, these guys hit it right on the head. I don't have anything to add, so. Yes.
No, I'm going to add something that they may not talk to you about. I also think you have to think about, where we're going as a company and where the industry is going. One of the things that's not really talked about many at these conferences is the way we have reorganized inside of Microsoft. And a year ago, Satya Nadella, we did a little bit first in marketing. Marketing always leads engineering. We reorganized, and we are System Center and Windows Server together. We've reorganized engineering that way. So our head of development, Bill Lang, he runs the engineering teams for System Center and Windows Server together. Brad Anderson, who you've spoken, who is the head of our program management. Program management's a big, Jeff's program manager, it's a big, broad topic. Those are the ones who actually design and code and spec the scenarios that are then engineered. So it's very important. He runs Windows Server and System Center. So we believe that so tightly you need to integrate management into server. It's so, so important. And so our headed direction is to make this easier and easier for you. You've heard some great stories about how orchestrators, that's where the North Star for engineering is as well. And I think that's something we often don't talk enough about and how critical that is. Jeff talked about it, how we took the dependencies away. But we also think about the scenarios, the innovation we're doing together as well. So I think that's a really important thing we don't talk about. And then to add to where we're going with when we think about things like, and you may not like the word, but how do you think about delivering IT as a service or infrastructure as a service through a cloud model? And really, that's really focused too. So we can take care of you today, great, great, great. But we also, I think, have a great vision. So I just have to add that. I don't think the company's like, I'm going to be really hardcore. I don't see Altiris have those same vision. I don't see them having that same kind of energy and strategy.
Well, and one more thing to think about as well, and I agree the answer is it really does depend, because it depends on what issue is most acute in your company. Talk to plenty of folks that say, look, I've got devices everywhere. I have no centralized way that I'm managing my clients, my tablets, my phones, my et cetera. So configuration manager becomes the obvious place. Well, that's where we want to put our resources first. Or if it's on the server side, it's like, look, we've got a bunch of applications and services we're delivering today. We don't know how well we're doing it. We don't know how efficient we're being. And in fact, we always have how many times do you have the problem where you deploy an application, something's wrong with it, dev points at IT and IT points at dev, and you get in one of these matches. And really you're stuck in the middle and you just like, look, I just want to solve the problem, figure it out, identify it, and move on with life. So if that's the case, then operations manager becomes a lot more important, because we can give you that health and monitoring, and we can actually tell you, well, guess what? Here's the actual line of code that's the problem. Is this a bad SQL statement, or what's the deal here? So that's, again, it depends on what area is most acute to you. And then the last thing I always like to remind folks is, here's something you really need to internalize, and it's very important. Is think about this. If you're running SharePoint, if you're running SQL, if you're running Link, if you're running Exchange, if you're running Dynamics, those teams actually develop and build the management packs that go into System Center. So think about that for a second. The SQL guys know what counters, what health monitoring, what the health of is that workload in service. And so they know what counters and how you should be monitoring it. They build the management pack that goes in Operations Manager. Same is true for Exchange, SharePoint, Dynamic, Links, etc. So every time you're deploying System Center and you're installing those management packs, you're getting the wherewithal that the teams that actually develop the applications built right into System Center. I think that's a really untapped benefit that a lot of people don't realize that that's in there. So, yeah. And they're free, yes, and they're free. But, and we do that for server roles as well. So file print, et cetera, things like that, we also include those as well. So it's not just about throwing out technology or about throwing out System Center. It's about making sure that we put build the intelligence in there for you as well.
I think we're out of time.
I believe we are out of time. So I just want to thank the panelists for just a moment here. Ryan, Brett, Vaughn, and Ted. Thank you guys very much. And again, thank you for your questions. And we'll be here for a few more minutes. But again, enjoy the rest of MMS. We thank you very much. And don't forget to fill out